everybody, you're very welcome to a new brand story here on ITSP Magazine. I'm thrilled to have the team from HITRUST back with me to talk to me about some new cool stuff that is not necessarily hot off the press, but there's been a lot of work taking place to build this new product around cyber insurance. And Robert, Booker, and Blake Sutherland, it's great to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Sean. Great to be here.
And wonderful seeing you in person at the Collaborate 2024 event, where there was a lot of conversation on this topic from partners and customers alike. And I know some folks that I had a chance to talk to also were very intrigued by what the team has pulled together. Before we get into the conversation, a few words from each of you about your role at HITRUST, and then we'll get into the new product. Robert.
Yeah, hi everyone. Robert Booker here. I have strategy, research, and innovation for HITRUST, and before coming over to HITRUST as an employee, I worked for many years as a CISO in the industry, and retired and then unretired, and here we are doing all this great work.
The unretiring.
The unretiring.
Yes, it's fantastic. Well, I'm glad you're there, Robert. You're doing some amazing things. Blake.
Blake Sutherland, EVP Market Engagement, which involves customer success, sales, business development, and really trying to formulate some of the ideas that Robert comes up with and bring them to market.
Yeah, and this isn't your first rodeo either. You've done a lot of things in this space. People can look at your profile and see some of the cool things you've worked on.
True enough. In fact, I started with HITRUST way back when it launched. So I was part of the first CSF launch way back in San Francisco, 16 years ago now, Robert?
Yep,
and,
indeed.
Been working in the industry in software security for a long time.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so cyber insurance, just those two words might put pictures in people's minds. They might cringe a little bit. They might cry a little bit. There may be some that I don't know. Maybe the brokers and the insurers might be happy. I don't know. But if we'll start with you, Robert. Can you paint the picture of the world of cyber insurance as it kind of sits today? Maybe a peek back in the past to kind of give us a view into how we ended up where we are at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Sean, and a good start. You know, it's an essential service. I mean, insurance has been something we use to mitigate all kinds of risk, and those of us that are security leaders have always talked about, manage risk and then potentially insure the balance of residual risk. So it's always been the concept we talk about as a security professionals. And but it's a little bit of a space that's been mysterious for many, and I think it's a space that's changed really dramatically over the last I'll say 5 to 6 years. There's a series of new and interesting capabilities that are being looked at in terms of how to think about the risk and what the coverage of cyber insurance could be for companies. But there's also a lot of companies that have been in the insurance industry for well over a century, and I truly mean that. I mean, insuring all kinds of risk for hundreds of years now. And they're also the big players in this space. So you've got the companies that are looking at the future and thinking about how to disrupt the market in a positive way, create a better experience for the people that are covered through the underwriting process. And then you've got people that are sort of looking at it as, this is sort of the questionnaire. Let's ask you a bunch of things about yourselves, and we'll decide how much you're going to pay for cyber insurance in this cycle. And I think, Sean, the thing that's really fascinating about it is it literally is different every time. So if I look at the policies I purchased 6-7 years ago in my tenure with a Fortune 10 company, every year the process looked differently. It was always based on interviews. We had some questionnaires eventually, and it always felt quite subjective. So I think anything we can do to make it objective is valuable for the industry and for the people that are underwriting these risks.
I know I had an opportunity to host a panel at Collaborate on this topic, and one of the things they pointed out is cyber insurance among types of insurance is relatively young. And part of the problem and why we're seeing different mechanisms and them changing year to year is because there isn't a long history of data, and that they're looking to make better risk decisions, and they're looking for ways to get that information.
Yeah, and my experience over the years, and maybe you can confirm this from your own interactions with folks over the years as well, is that you kind of alluded to it a little bit, Robert, that a lot of organizations would put in policies and controls to help mitigate some of the risk that they have, and then there's some residual. But my experience is that a lot of people led with, well, we'll get cyber insurance, and whatever they say we need to do, we'll put those things in place, and not really focus on the posture, more focus on getting the policy. Is that something you've recognized, and is it still true if it has been something you've seen?
Yeah, I think it's less true than the past, Sean, but it has been true in the past, and I think cybersecurity as a discipline has evolved so dramatically, even without regard to the insurance side of things. So the capabilities that organizations need to have to defend themselves from the types of threats that are out there in the world today, change very dramatically, and they change on a regular basis based upon new attacks and new vulnerabilities and new exposures. And so sometimes the challenge is to know what is good enough and what is necessary to actually, manage that risk. And I think companies, especially mid-market companies, often look at their cyber insurance carrier as an expert or a resource that they can lean to or look to, excuse me, to help them define the space. And I think actually, if you talk to the underwriters, they would probably not want to be characterized that way. I think they would view the space as requiring the leadership the company brings forward to understand their scope of their systems, where their data lies, what kind of information they have at risk, and then to decide what level of management and control is needed to, manage that risk. And so I think inherent in the question is just maybe a little bit of a challenge in understanding and clarifying the role of the underwriter, the broker as part of that process, and then the role of the company that's being insured. And I think my most successful encounters with the insurance industry were encounters where I had the opportunity to have a relationship with them, to talk about the philosophy of our program in my prior life and how we thought about the risk management that we invested in for the company. And I think that kind of engagement provides great respect, and that's the kind of thing we're trying to formalize, in a way for, maybe people that don't have the pleasure of and the benefit of working for a very large company. They're working for a smaller market company that still wants to be able to distinguish themselves to the underwriters. Say, I've done the right things the right way in order to manage the risk I have.
And Blake, to you for this one, or Robert as well. The other thing that I've seen maybe shift over time is, I think early on the policies were being written as fast as they could, and because they offer the product, and the companies needed the product, right? They needed the insurance. And actually, about 15 years ago, maybe even longer, I pressed some of the folks in the industry, saying, are there clauses and other things in the policies that give you the get out of jail free card, so you don't actually have to pay a claim? And they said, no. We want to provide a service here that helps our customers get out of the trouble that they're in. So there aren't any weird things there. But so I think some of that now has shifted to a lot of claims being made, certainly around ransomware. And with that, perhaps fewer policies and maybe a closer look at posture and things like that. So Blake, some of your thoughts on where we stand in terms of being able to get policies, being able to get good terms in those policies?
Well, certainly with the rise of ransomware and the cost that's imposed on the industry, certainly it made underwriting insurance a bigger challenge, a desire to know who you're underwriting much better, which has caused some of the things that Robert was alluding to: longer and longer questionnaires, different questionnaires every year, these sorts of things. And certainly it's caused frustration among those that are looking to get insured, our customers, right? In that rates could vary massively year to year. You might not be able to get the same insurer in a subsequent year because of what they've experienced within their risk pool. And of course, certainly customers of ours who feel they're doing the right thing and can demonstrate it, feel they're part of a sort of a high quality risk pool, meaning one that should perform well You can take a look at our trust report to see what we see in terms of, the level of breach for those who are getting our highest certification, the R2. So they should be a good risk pool, and as a result, they should be rewarded. So definitely seeing that pain in the market, and our excitement about bringing this with our partners to market was, they understand what our risk management capabilities and maturity that someone who is certified for HITRUST have achieved, and therefore can make the whole process a lot easier for them.
Yeah, with reliability and provability and a bunch of other stuff we'll get into here. So you said this. Let's take this moment to define what you've brought to market, and maybe with that, what was the driver behind that? Was it customer request? Was it broker request? Was it how'd the product come to be?
I actually think all parties on the creation of the product were seeing the same need in the market, in that, organizations were frustrated with the process. It can be very time consuming. Robert's been through it many times. He shared some stories about how time consuming it can be. And frankly, the outcome, whether they get the amount of coverage they needed, whether they could get coverage at all, how steep the premium would be and how it would change over time or be predictable from a budgeting perspective. So there absolutely was a need we could see from the mutual customer, if you will. I think if I try to put the insurer's hat on, and HITRUST is not an insurance organization, so we should probably make that very clear. Our partners are. And, from their perspective, they were having to basically ensure a very general level of risk, not the residual risk, because without the right data to understand what the residual risk was, it was hard to know how much there was there. So they had to sort of pool at sort of the lowest common denominator for many. And, they wanted to improve that because insurance companies want to work with good risk pools and can offer better insurance coverage and premiums as a result.
And Robert, talk to me about you've been through it a few times, kind of the process of getting coverage. What you have to provide, how do you prove what you provide is accurate? How long does that take? How much back and forth? You talked about having interviews and things like that. How does what you provide with your insurance partners help in that regard, and other things perhaps that I haven't even touched on?
Yeah, I think it's traditionally began with a questionnaire or a series of insights that the underwriter is seeking to understand how you manage your security system. And so what's fascinating about that is you may actually have a different questionnaire for different underwriters. The brokers have tried to normalize that somewhat, but if I want to be competitive or seek a competitive bid in the process, I want to talk to different underwriters, I might end up having to do multiple questionnaires because one company may view specific controls as more essential than another company may. That is getting better, I think, but in general, it's pretty much. I'll ask you a lot of questions about your system, about the controls you have, about how much data you have, what's the sensitivity of the data, all the things that sort of quantify a risk, a number that they can actually say, okay, this is the potential exposure that we're seeing for your business. And then that goes to an underwriting analyst, usually an expert in sort of cybersecurity considerations that each underwriter has, or a team of experts in some cases. And there will likely be some conversation. They might come back and ask you some clarifying questions about some of your responses, but there's really not a lot of validation. And even now in the last year or two, you'll get challenges on it, like, well, you say you have two-factor authentication, like explain to me how you've got two-factor authentication enabled at every point of entry into your company. But there's no consistency with how you would actually validate that data. So I think in thinking about the challenge the underwriter has, it's like, well, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to ask smart questions and get good responses, then try to make sure I test those responses. But it ultimately kind of comes down to looking in the eyes of the customer and saying, do I believe that they really have confidence in their program? And I think there can be a better way. I mean, if we can actually look at not only the control specificity, but how the controls are implemented, their policies that create an incentive in the company to have that control, the procedures that make sure the control stays in place, and then we score it like we score many things at HITRUST with regard to security and risk management, and you can earn a level of maturity. Then the underwriter should know with confidence in how that process works, that if you score a 71.3 in this area, you're a pretty darn good organization from a cybersecurity perspective. And I think that's, to Blake's earlier point, that's the real, if I may, holy grail around this, is to say, if I know you've earned a certain level of objective and quantifiable maturity, I can know that I can underwrite your risk at a level that's lower from a premium perspective, because I'm much less likely as an underwriter to pay a claim. And so I think that really is the future of the space. And I think it's like many things in technology. Let's use the data, let's validate ourselves and validate the data, and let's make sound data-based decisions. And the underwriters that are smart about this are getting there.
And if I might add, just touching on two things both of you have said is, a denied claim is considered a failure by the insurance industry as well. They don't want to deny claims at all. And this concept of independent verification of the information you're getting to make risk-based decisions is hugely important to the insurance industry, because it's, whether someone knowingly or unknowingly positioned a level of maturity or a capability that they have in a questionnaire, the fact that in a HITRUST certification it's been independently verified provides a level of trust in the data that they can make decisions at, and know that they won't be stuck in a situation where they'd have to deny a claim because of the data not being independently verified.
So talk to me about the process of an existing HITRUST customer that has a certification. Is it all three levels? Does it apply? And if so, what do they do once they have that certification to obtain the insurance?
Okay, so the HITRUST shared risk facility is only available for the R2 level now, today. The plan is to expand it to our I1 and E1 levels, and in fact, even investigate our new AI certification as something that may be insurable in the future, but those are still to come. The offering is broker agnostic. So if a HITRUST organization is interested in seeing what sort of offer they can get for insurance through this facility, all they need to do is reach out to their broker and mention it, and the broker will be able to contact the underwriter for a quote. The way it's been simplified is within our system, you can just share your assessment, your results electronically with the underwriter, and as a result, they will have all the information they need. No need for 500 questionnaires or those sorts of things in order to demonstrate sort of their level of maturity. There, of course, will be a few extra questions that will have to be verified, and things that are not captured, like claim history and other things that may be relevant to issuing insurance. But that's the general process, and it certainly streamlines all this exchange of information as it relates to security controls and maturity.
That's through the results distribution system, RDS?
Yeah, that's the capability we have in our platform for sharing information and allowing an organization who's been assessed to say, I do want to share this with this other organization. And in this case, for cyber insurance.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And obviously, it's all the work that they've done to hopefully, first and foremost, have a good security program, and then following that, having the proof that they've done that, so that they can meet regulatory requirements, policy requirements, internal or otherwise, and now cyber insurance, which is really cool.
Yeah, Sean, I think to that point, we have quantifiable data that well below 1% of our R2 certified customers, about 0.64% over a 2-year period, so 0.32% per year, kind of rough math, of people actually experience a reportable breach. And that's very exciting to the cyber insurance underwriting community, because while they're careful about guarding the actual number, their claim history would be significantly above that level of performance. So they like seeing the data because it helps them underwrite it. But I think they're also having a high level of confidence that they're getting to a very high quality applicant. Somebody that does a good job at their cybersecurity program has earned something that proves that. And to Blake's earlier point, which I can't overstate enough, is a high quality risk pool. It drives both premium costs down and it drives performance of the overall product up. So, insurance companies want safe drivers for auto insurance, and they want well-secured companies for cybersecurity coverage. And so this is an important tool to help them find those entities, the people they really do want to do business with.
HITRUST, your safe driving app. I think you're getting at, Robert, right?
I think the lawyers would say that's not a good use of a term, but I'll take it. I
think it paints a picture anyway. Whether
yeah, exactly right, Sean.
So I spoke to Ryan Patrick the other day. We did a nice recap around collaborate, and cyber insurance is one of the points we touched on. And he made another statement on the cost. So I don't want to misrepresent that. So I don't know if it's one thing to, actually get a look at, so you can potentially get a policy, right? It's another to actually get a policy with good terms, good coverage. That's all for naught if it costs an exorbitant amount of money, right? Or too much. So I know there's some progress in that front too, in terms of the cost of coverage. Anything you want to share there?
Well, I'd love to point you back to the recording from Collaborate, because the underwriter lead for the consortium was the one that made the comment. And I think I'd caveat it first with every underwriter has a different model for assessing risk. And so in their case, in their models, if you had, sort of a weak attestation like a SOC 2, and then on the other side, you had a HITRUST R2, they would discount the difference in the insurance by 25% per year.
Yeah, that's what I heard there, and that's what I heard again. So I'm glad.
Yeah, so hopefully I got all the caveats. He made a few others.
Yeah. I'm sure there are many, and there's no one size fits all, of course.
Well, the other thing that's quite fascinating is that because it is a syndicate, and it's a syndicate through Lloyd's of London, companies can actually gain access to even a higher level of coverage. So if I go to a single underwriter as a company with a certain level of risk, and I say I'd like to buy a policy, they might give me, I don't know, $5 million of coverage. That might be all the exposure they'll take for any one client. But through a syndicate, they might have 2 or 3 companies that are all comfortable with this underwriting process we've described today, and they would pool that coverage. So you would have 5 million plus 5 million if there were 2 of them, for example, and that actually opens the market up for companies that have a higher level of need because their customers or their products really need higher levels of coverage, and it allows everybody in that consortium that Blake described to know with consistency that they're all looking at the same data when they underwrite that risk as a team. And so that just makes for good clarity and good transparency around the whole process.
That's fantastic. And I want to, as we're coming up to the end here in a moment, another thing I heard at Collaborate and leading up to the conference, and maybe Robert, you can speak to this first, is the idea that it's not necessarily the CISO's role to acquire coverage. Now, the CISO has a lot of responsibility in terms of what is my program, how do I prove it, what regulations have I met, and what controls can I show that I've put in place, and what have you. And do I have a HITRUST R2 that I can share to help with this? But there are other folks involved, the financial team, third-party vendor management teams perhaps are involved. So can you speak to how this potentially helps bring the right stakeholders together and bring them all together on the same page, such that they're aware that good programs with HITRUST certification can result in good things?
Yeah, well, the process has traditionally been that the corporate risk or the treasury risk functions in companies are the ones that actually buy insurance. Not universally the case, but mostly the case. And so oftentimes it's the security team and the security leader that's being impacted by the underwriting questions that we've just been describing today. And so it's kind of a silo. There's somebody buying the product. There's somebody that has to prove that the system is good so they can qualify to buy the product. And what these kind of capabilities do is they allow those two business leadership functions to collaborate on this problem. And I think it does a couple of things. It gives the security team the opportunity to demonstrate with objectivity to their corporate partners, we've got a good, well managed security program, and that might actually result in a decision to maybe buy a little less insurance, for example. I mean, it might very well be that I feel like we've got some good maturity in our program, and we don't need so much insurance. But the other thing is I think it oftentimes it's those corporate risk leaders that are communicating to the board and others, along with the CISO, about this different problem. I just think the more that we have enterprise leaders all understanding the problems we solve for each other and solve with each other, the better our companies are from a governance and from a overall management point of view. So just bringing people together with a common understanding is a great value in my mind.
And I don't know if you had anything to add there, Blake, but what I'd like to wrap with is perhaps a message to the folks listening. How I think we described, if you're an existing HITRUST customer, you reach out to your broker and they can present this information. Is there a message to the brokers out there, or perhaps to some of the other stakeholders that we want to share?
I can start. I'll start, Blake. So I think the question, the message to the industry is it can be better. You can have higher levels of confidence that the people you're underwriting risk for have been truly and objectively validated. And I think the desire, to an earlier point Blake made, to ensure that when you write a policy, your policy provides the protections your customer is seeking, requires a high level of confidence. So I think any underwriter that's out there that wants to participate in this process, I mean, it's a facility for a reason, and it's available for others, and that's certainly an opportunity for people to get involved and get engaged. And it's pretty low intensity. I mean, there's no, you don't have to true up your questionnaires and stuff. You just literally have to understand how it works, and you can gain access to the information. And I think we would invite others in the market to participate, especially as they get there. One last message for the customer, though, is if you have a cyber insurance policy today, you're seeking renewal. This facility is available through any licensed broker. They can gain a quote. I would test yourself. If you have an R2 certification, I would say, I want to just see what I would get. And, it's not a heavy process because you already have earned the certification. You can use that data to qualify. And, I think people will be pleasantly surprised to find that there is higher quality insurance available at potentially a lower cost. And, it doesn't take a lot to sort of try that out as a consuming organization. So, maybe curiosity would be a good thing to look at whether it can be done differently.
Maybe a message to organizations that have solid programs, but maybe not an R2 yet, like, because I think the whole trust factor, internally and externally, with your partners and your customers, and now with cyber insurance carriers, just the fact that it's independently assessed, right, and certified by HITRUST is a huge thing in my mind. So I don't know, can you speak to the value of getting the R2 with the value then leading to perhaps better insurance as well?
Yeah, I actually sort of back to your comment about what might I say to the brokers, right? Like, brokers are there to guide folks to better quality, risk transference through insurance products, right? So knowing that an R2 could help your customer achieve better rates, better coverage, better quality of insurance is something that you can provide as guidance to them. I think we're excited in that, as we mentioned at the top of the show, E1 and I1 are stepping stones to an R2. R2 is our highest certification, and we have a traversable portfolio, as you know. As we tailor the product for the E1 and the I1. If someone isn't HITRUST certified but wants to mature or feels they're mature already, that first step may not be as hard as they think it is. And they can start there and then see the benefit as they move, up the maturity ladder, if you will.
Yeah, it's such a cool thing. And this is a space that I've been following for a while now. And I think it was a few years back, there were some inklings that this was going to start to take place and take form. And I'm super excited to see it happen here. And it was great to get the feedback and see the energy of folks that collaborate. Really embrace what you've done here and what the underwriters have pulled together. And I had a chance to chat with a few folks, so folks can stay tuned for those episodes coming out soon. So lots coming here. Any final words, Robert or Blake?
No, I think I appreciate the time, Sean. It's great to explore something that's important for people.
Absolutely. I encourage everybody to take that spark of curiosity that's coming from this conversation, hopefully, and engage with your broker and engage with HITRUST. And let's raise the tide for everybody. It's a good thing for everybody involved here. So thanks everybody for listening and watching. And Robert, Blake, it's fantastic to see you guys. And more conversations coming.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks a lot, Sean.
Have a good day.